When trying to learn about the Greek gods, I've discovered that mythology has its limitations. Because playing a character in a story is just one of so many other roles a god serves for their believers. To us mythology nerds, Zeus, Poseidon, Athena, they're just that, characters who only exist in stories. But to an ancient Greek, the gods were ever-present beings who they interacted with every day of their life, and it's so easy to forget that when we're just looking at myths. What we also end up doing is putting a greater focus on gods who appear in more myths than others. If there aren't many stories about someone, it's easy to get the impression that they weren't very important. Take, for instance, the goddess Hecate. According to surviving Greek mythology, Hecate was the daughter of the Titan gods Perseus and Asteria. She allied with Zeus during the Titanomachy and was granted by him domain over the earth, sea, and sky. She also helped the Olympians in their war with the giants and killed one named Cleidius. I really hope that's how it's pronounced. And when Hades kidnapped Persephone, it was Hecate who helped Demeter search for her daughter, and afterwards she became a close companion of Persephone's. She also had a pet dog and weasel who each used to be human ladies before they pissed off the gods and got metamorphosisted. And that's pretty much it. That's more or less everything Hecate herself does in Greek mythology. So you might assume there wasn't much else going on with her. No, that is incorrect. In reality, when you take a good close look at the few references to Hecate in Greek sources, she becomes easily one of the most interesting gods, and the mystery surrounding her just makes her all the more fascinating. But before I tell you all that super interesting stuff that you definitely want to keep watching this video to hear, I gotta tell you about this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. That's right, I'm a real YouTuber now. Now I'm sure you've been around the block a few times, so I don't need to tell you that Raid Shadow Legends is a free, massively popular tactical RPG that brings console-level gameplay and graphics to your mobile device or PC. But this is a sponsored ad, so I'm contractually obligated to present these talking points. I don't need to tell you that Raid has over 600 uniquely skilled champions who you can recruit to fill your team and take on countless bosses, dungeons, and PvP arena matches. Like Venus, who I picked for my team because of her versatile support skills, allowing me to put massive debuffs on enemies. And not just because I thought her goth outfit looked cool and no other reason. Or Rhodos, who I like for being one of the strongest single target attackers in the whole game, and not just because he looks like a cool ghost pirate. Or the super strong defensive champion Underpriest Brogni, who I picked because he's hot. And this month, Raid's running a special trick-or-treat promotion. All you have to do is head to trickortreat.plarium.com, put in your Raid ID, and spin the wheel for a chance to win a bunch of in-game and real-life prizes. But hurry, because this event ends November 5th. Also, up till October 25th, players can use the DK Rises promo code for a bunch of free in-game items to instantly upgrade any of your strongest champions to level 50. And if you're totally new to Raid, click my link in the description or scan the QR code in the right corner to get your own unique bonuses worth $30. Like a free epic champion, Rector Drath, that's a name, 200k in silver, an energy refill, an XP boost, and an ancient shard. So you can summon new champions right off the bat and start Raid Shadow Legendsing like a pro. Don't forget to use my links in the description. Thank you for your support, Raid. Raid Shadow Legends! Woo! Okay, back to Hecate. I wonder if you can tell that I took a break because the lighting is super different now. So the first thing worth noting about Hecate is the fact that we don't really know where she came from. Theories range from her originally being an aspect of the goddess Artemis, who later split into a separate deity, to her coming from the frog-headed Egyptian goddess Hecate, or to Hecate having been imported to Greece from Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, where there's also evidence of her worship. The first ever mention of Hecate is in Hesiod's Theogony, and despite her small role, Hesiod really hypes her up, emphasizing her high status among the other gods. He also describes her as having a huge sway over the lives of humans, and how she'll grant good fortune to those who properly honor her. In Hesiod's case, it's clear that worship of Hecate was a major part of his day-to-day life, but this actually seems somewhat unique to him. For instance, Homer, who probably lived around the same time and has a much larger body of extant work, never mentions Hecate at all. It's for this reason we can suspect Hesiod may have come from a tradition that expressed greater veneration for Hecate than most other followers of the broader Greek religion. Though we also know Hecate was a major figure in the Eleusinian mystery cult alongside Demeter and Persephone. Unfortunately, we don't know much about how that particular group worshipped her. They're called mystery cults for a reason. Moving into the late Archaic, early Classical period, we see a few mentions of shrines to Hecate in people's homes, similar to Hestia. And we also see mentions of Hecate shrines located at the crossings of roads, suggesting that she served as a protector for travelers. This role is backed up in mythology, with her serving as a traveling companion to Demeter in the Persephone myth that I mentioned earlier. This affinity for travelers, combined with her connections to the underworld through Persephone, probably contributed to another one of Hecate's famous roles, that of a psychopomp, a guider of souls to the afterlife, much like the Olympian god Hermes. And if we move further into the 3rd century BC, we see Hecate take on a darker persona in Apollonius's epic, the Argonautica. In this source, Hecate is the patron goddess of the witch Medea, and we even get a brief cameo of the goddess herself when Jason summons her under Medea's instructions, and shit gets spooky. And when he called on her, he drew back, and she heard him, the dread goddess, from the uttermost depths, and came to the sacrifice of Aeson's son. And round her horrible serpents twined themselves among the oak boughs, and there was a gleam of countless torches, and sharply howled around her the hounds of hell. All the meadows trembled at her step, and the nymphs that haunt the marsh and the river shrieked, all who dance round the mead of the Amarantian Phasis, and fear seized Aeson's son. Now, any deity can be multifaceted. That's what makes most of them interesting. They can be feared and beloved at the same time. But there's such a stark contrast between Hesiod's sky mommy and the spooky dread goddess of witchcraft that Apollonius describes, that I can't help but wonder what happened in the 300 or 400 years between these two authors to cause such a change. We of course will never know. We just know that this more complex version of Hecate is what we continue to see through this and later periods in Greek and Roman history. The exact practices of her cult worshippers were still deliberately shrouded in mystery. But in the writing of that time onwards, her association with magic, the dead, and travelers, and her capacity for spookiness, which previously were mostly just hinted at, now became a very explicit part of her persona. We also see her iconic three-bodied or three-faced idols become super prominent. This form was seen as symbolic to her association with crossroads, with each face pointing in the direction of each diverging path. It can also, I think, be seen as symbolic to her many different roles. She's a protector and granter of good fortune, she's a patron of magic and witchcraft, and she's a spooky dread goddess of the underworld, all at the same time. Hecate is a shining example of just how deep and mysterious Greek gods can be, and how much interesting stuff you can miss if you just focus on the guys who get the most attention.